In the summer of 2005, Ireland experienced its first heat wave in nearly a decade. Temperatures soared to almost 30 degrees Celsius, a dramatic departure from the typical 16-degree days that usually came with wind. It was during this unusual weather that 5 teenagers from a small Irish town decided to explore Blackberry Lane Manor, an abandoned estate where a girl had hung herself in a well 40 years earlier. 2 of them would hear the same voice, calling from different floors of the ruined house. For one of them, a local teenager named Rian, it remains the only time he's certain he encountered something that wasn't alive. The day began ordinarily enough. Rian was spending time with his best friend Danielle and her boyfriend John at John's uncle's house. The heat had everyone looking for something to do, and when their friend Jamie arrived with a suggestion, it seemed like the perfect adventure for a summer's evening. "Let's go visit the haunted house again," Jamie proposed. He and John had been to Blackberry Lane Manor before, but Danielle and Rian had never seen the abandoned estate. After Jamie fetched his girlfriend, the group of 5 set off toward the old property. The journey took them over a bridge on a back circular road leading out of town. This wasn't the main thoroughfare, but rather a route that would past expensive houses, open fields, and a train station. Just at the bottom of the bridge to the right stood an old gate, marking the entrance to an overgrown field. The grass had grown thigh-high in the summer heat, creating a sea of green that rustled in the slight breeze. As they made their way across the field, Rian's excitement grew. "Anything weird ever happened to you guys in there?" he asked the 2 who had visited before. "Rian, be quiet," Danielle whispered, her voice barely audible. Though Rian found her whispering amusing, he couldn't deny his own nervousness building with each step. Halfway across the field, Jamie and John turned left, heading towards a line of trees that marked the edge of a small wooded area. After crossing a shallow ditch, they followed a dirt path through the trees until they reached a clearing. There, as if materializing from nowhere, stood Blackberry Lane Manor. The house was built of grey stone with long windows that stared blindly at the approaching visitors. Where the roof should have been, only intact rafters remained, skeletal against the evening sky. A large fire in the 1980s had consumed much of the structure, but the walls still stood, a monument to whatever tragedy had befallen it. "I don't like this," Danielle said as they approached. "I don't feel good. Let's just go." The front door was missing entirely, revealing a small porch area no more than 3 feet deep. Beyond that, 2 large double doors resembling oversized shutters served as a secondary entrance to the main house. The architecture suggested the manor dated back to the late 18th century, built in the distinctive style common to Irish manor houses of that period. Rian stepped inside first. Darkness greeted him as shutters covered the glassless windows throughout the ground floor. The stairs remained intact but were covered in rubble and debris. To the right, the front room lay in ruins. Its wall had crumbled when the first floor collapsed during the fire, leaving the space choked with brick and stone fragments. Jamie pushed past Rian and led the way down a long, narrow corridor stretching to the back of the house. Rian followed, carefully stepping over bricks and fragments of doors that creaked beneath his weight. Danielle trailed behind, tugging at Rian's shirt nervously. When Rian stumbled over a piece of burned timber, Danielle had had enough. She turned and ran back outside. "Here, look in here. It leads down to the basement," Jamie said, pointing to a doorway opposite what had clearly been the kitchen. The counters remained, and bizarrely, an old refrigerator still stood against the wall. "Cool," Rian replied. Being the bravest, or perhaps most foolish of the group, he slowly descended the stone stairs. The walls were cold to the touch, and as the stairs curved around a bend, darkness swallowed him completely. At the bottom, Ryan waited for his eyes to adjust. A thin stream of light seeped through what appeared to be an air vent carved through the stone wall. He could just make out grass growing outside, partially blocking the light source. "Is there anything down there?" Jamie called from above. "No, there's just a few bits of things lying around, and a door face down on the floor in the centre of the room." Ryan called back, moving towards the door as he spoke. He tried to flip it over with his toe, discovering it was actually attached to the floor and had curled upwards from the heat of the fire. When he managed to open it, his jaw dropped. "It must go down another story underground," he yelled. "There are more stairs down here." Jamie's sneakers slapped against a stone as he hurried down. He stumbled over debris entering the cellar and found Ryan in the darkness. "See?" Ryan pointed at the opening. Jamie, a smoker, produced his lighter, and together they descended the second set of stairs. These led into a tunnel, his brick walls blackened with soot. After 15 or 20 seconds of careful walking, they emerged into a larger cellar containing 2 large boilers, one at each end. Floor-to-ceiling wine racks lined one wall, suggesting the boilers were a later addition. After all, who installed boilers in a wine cellar? A door at the far end of the room refused to budge despite their efforts. As Ryan examined it, Jamie placed a hand on his shoulder. "Here, come in here. Come with me," Jamie whispered loudly, then brushed past Ryan to the left. Ryan watched him turn down another short tunnel where the light glowed faintly at the far end. He followed. When Ryan entered the room at the tunnel's end, Jamie had vanished. The room had only one exit, the doorway Ryan now stood in. Whoever he had followed into that room was not Jamie, and they were nowhere to be seen. Panic seized Ryan. He raced back through the tunnels, up into the main cellar, up the stairs and through the house, making frightened whimpering sounds the entire way. His heart hammered in his chest. As he reached the main stairs, John came thundering down from the upper floor, nearly jumping the entire stairwell in his hassle to get outside. Jamie and Danielle were already outside, both looking shaken. "Guys, something just..." Ryan struggled for words. "I heard a voice. I think I saw something." John was pale and panting heavily. "What did it say?" "It said something like, 'Here, in here, come with me,' or something, and I followed him. I didn't know who it was." Ryan explained, knowing how absurd it sounded even as the words left his mouth. "Well, I heard that too," John exclaimed. "You couldn't have. I was in the cellar, under the actual cellar. The wine cellar, I think," Ryan insisted. "You can't have heard it. I was 2 whole stories underground, Jamie. I thought it was you and I followed right behind you, or it. You couldn't have turned back and tricked me. There wasn't room in that tunnel leading into that last room. When I was upstairs, I passed by a bedroom and I heard someone say, 'Come in here, clear as day,'" John said, shaking his head. "And I saw someone walking around the room, but when I called for Jamie, he was already downstairs and outside with Danny." "Guys," Danielle interrupted as they began recounting their experiences again. "It's getting dark. Let's go." Jamie, however, looked horrified. "I didn't tell you guys something, but someone died in that house." "What, you mean like in the fire?" Danielle asked, her eyes wide. "No, she was one of the daughters of one of the owners in the 60s. She took her own life," Jamie revealed. "She climbed down these beams in the well out in the courtyard and hung herself halfway down." "Oh, get real, Jamie. Come off it," Ryan protested, suddenly feeling cynical despite not doubting what had happened to them. Jamie led them around the side of the house, down a small avenue where trees grew together overhead, creating a natural tunnel. To everyone's surprise, they discovered a guest house still standing behind and to the left of the main property. Beyond that, stables and a barn created 2 small courtyards. Jamie guided them through a pagoda covered with branches and ivy into a courtyard at the back of the manor house. High stone walls surrounded the space with a gate and a blocked back door leading into the main house. In the centre stood the well. When Danielle and Rian peered over the edge, they saw wooden beams crossing at various angles all the way down. The well was narrow enough that someone could throw their legs over the edge, balance on one beam, crouch to sit on it, and jump down to the next, continuing all the way to the bottom. The group left as darkness fell. When Rian arrived home, he told his father about the adventure. As both a politician and an employee at an auctioneering firm, his father knew the abandoned manor house well. Rian mentioned Jamie's story about the daughter who had taken her own life there, but kept quiet about his own experience. "Oh yeah," his father nodded. "A girl did hang herself in the well. They were well known. Her father was a very violent man, not a nice character at all. They all died though. He died there alone in the end, if I'm right. But your friend's telling the truth. The girl hung herself down there. It was terrible. Then the place went up in flames about 20 years ago." Intrigued by this confirmation, Rian visited the library to search the old newspaper archives. The library maintained digital copies of front pages containing items of historical interest. In the research room, scanning through the computer files, he found what he was looking for. A small section on the back of a cover page from 1964 reported the incident. The identity of who John saw in the bedroom and who Rian encountered in the cellars remains unknown. Rian's impression was that his encounter was with a male, possibly young. The timing was particularly striking. John's experience occurred immediately after Rian's, just as Rian emerged from the cellars. This remains Rian's only encounter with the supernatural. He has never returned to Blackberry Lane Manor. According to local sources, the County Council approved planning permission for a large hotel on the premises, with demolition scheduled to begin before Christmas 2005. 20 years later, in 2025, the hotel stands where the manor once loomed. Whether guests experience anything unusual in their rooms, particularly in the areas where the old cellars once lay deep underground, is a question Rian prefers not to investigate. He has no plans to stay there, no matter how luxurious the accommodation might be. The summer heat wave of 2005 has long since passed, but for 5 teenagers who ventured into Blackberry Lane Manor on that sweltering evening, the chill they felt in those dark corridors has never quite left them. Some places, it seems, retain their secrets, regardless of fire, time, or redevelopment. And some voices, once heard in the darkness, echo long after the walls that contain them have fallen.